Hello everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everybody, Cantonese Cat here. I'm going to do a quick video. NASDAQ, Bitcoin, and miners. I'm just going to go through them real quick. I actually like the QQQ chart, which is the index fund for the NASDAQ 100. I like it a lot better than I did a couple months ago. The reason why is it's no longer overextended, and the Tenkan is just rising up in a hurry to potentially serve support to push price up even higher over time. I didn't really like the last bull cycle. It's just because simply, like, this is a monthly chart, right? Like, whenever things just get a little bit too far overextended from the blue line, things tend to get exhausted, right? In a more sustainable bull trend, you generally want the blue to be more or less kind of get close to price, and eventually it breaks down. That's okay. Over here, during this really healthy bull cycle, you can see the same thing. It'll never really overextend too far away from the blue. And over here initially for the last couple months or so, I was really a little bit worried it was overextended, but not anymore. QQQ actually looks a little bit healthier than SPY. So I actually like this QQQ chart. Now, look at it weekly too. Like, I'm not really that scared. I don't care Amazon earnings are not good. I mean, I think basically there's a lot of volatility. There's a lot of high volume selling, which is a little bit scary after some low volume melt up. You always get a little bit scared when you see something like this. But I just see a confluence of support over here. First of all, this is the weekly Jumboku Cloud. It comes to the Tenkan, which is the blue line here, and the Kijun, which is the red line here. And you can see that in addition to the Tenkan and Kijun, you also have the bull market support band, which is the 20-week SMA and 21-week EMA. There's a confluence support over here, right? On top of that, I was also already showing on X, I think there's also a volume weighted average price support in addition to all that. After hours with Amazon not doing very well, I think price did go back down to like the 456 range, somewhere around here. And this is a weekly chart. I mean, there's a potential closing below, but I just see this as like a lot of really strong support here, anywhere from around like 457 to around 458.3. And I just see that it's a pretty strong support zone over there. So I get the feeling that it probably end up holding. And if it doesn't end up holding, it could go down further, sure. But I still remain a little bit more bullish at support. And I also came up with on X2 a chart, basically just telling you, like, really since the bottom of the market here, like if I click over here, this how do you say that, the volume weighted average price, or the VWAP, from each of these pivot points. So for example, this is a cycle low, right? And you see that price bounce perfectly almost from that VWAP, and you can see if this is a very important pivot over here, you use that as a VWAP, you can see that price really bounced very nicely from there. Whenever it came back down, it had that vicious move down in October 2023, right? If you use this October 2023 as a pivot and you do the VWAP, you can see that price more or less found support over there at the vicious drop in April. Now, it is the month of August 1st, and so far, the VWAP, we end up closing, today as support. Now, tomorrow's going to be the last day for this candle to move, so could the price potentially break down underneath that? Sure, but I still see a potential for price to gravitate towards around 457, 458 range, and probably end up closing the week around there. And that would, to me, it would be end up closing at support. Now, if it ends up breaking through support, it's still not that big of a worry. Sometimes you just have a little bit of a false breakdown. But I just see this as a pretty decent set of support zone over here. So I'm not really too bearish about the QQQ. If you ask me about Bitcoin, on Bitcoin, yesterday I made a bunch of posts. I was talking about a very important level around 62,700 to 62,300, just because there was a lot of confluence zone around that area. So it was like the Tenkan right there around 62,700. And if you look at the bull market support band, the bottom of that is also going to be around 62,400, somewhere around there. There's just a lot of confluence that I'm just seeing there. Like the Subichi Cloud Tenkan is also around the same area. So I just can see that there's just a lot of support zone over there. So even if you look at daily chart, like the Ichimoku cloud is also right around 62. Let's see, yeah, 62. What is it? 700, somewhere around there, and we end up having a very nice like hammer candle bounce over here, like we did over here, right? So to me, I thought that this is a very confluent support zone, kind of like what I saw on the QQQ, and I thought that price probably ended up gravitating down towards that area. Whenever when I saw last night, price just couldn't really break back above like 66,000. It looks like I wanted to gravitate down, and this area right there would have been the magnet. And if we found that area right there, I thought it was probably going to bounce. And it did so far. I mean, so far it's not bouncing up like crazy, but I still think that the bounce is still pretty significant. You know that there's demand underneath around the area. Now, could it go down further? Sure it can, but I thought that was a pretty good area of support. What I'm really seeing here is more or less a fractal. I really think that these three candles over here are very similar to this three candle set over here. And I really think that these double humps over here are very similar to these double humps over here. I really thought that before you have this big price push up like that, you have a nice hammer candle over there. And before you have a nice price push up like this, you have another nice hammer candle over here. And before you have a hammer candle over here, you have a very nice double hump over here, kind of like you did over here too. So there's a lot of confluence in terms of the price action. I just see this being very symmetric, or how should I say that? It just seems like it's just following very similar market psychology in terms of what it's doing. You have a Marubasu candle here. You have basically essentially a Marubasu candle over here with a very tiny wick underneath. So usually these favor more bullish continuation. You can have some consolidation afterwards, but it certainly seems like it wants to continue price upwards based on what I'm seeing. If I overlay it with the Bora support band, you can also visualize this a little bit better if I can find that. There you are. Yeah, whenever things seem like kind of broken down underneath like that, after a double hump and broke underneath, and price to gravitate back up towards the Bora support band, in this instance, we actually went back up above it and reclaimed it. In this instance, we got close to it and we just got stuck inside. So I think that this over here at this part of fractal actually is a little bit more bullish over here than it is over here. Overall, I'm still bullish on Bitcoin. I still think that overall this is still a pretty bullish structure, and I think that it needed to find support where it needed to find support at. This is a little bit of a liquidity grab perhaps before it gravitates up further. And if I look at MSTR, that also tells me a little bit of a story here too. What MSTR is really telling me was, if you look at Bitcoin back over here, it's a little bit of a double top, double bottom kind of thing, but MSTR actually was very bullish. This tells me that MSTR wants to break out and that there's a lot more room for Bitcoin to run because MSTR is a more leveraged play compared to Bitcoin. And if you look at current price, I can still see that MSTR is still looking more bullish than Bitcoin. Like it was so bullish, I even had like a gap up. Now granted, this could be a little bit of an island. It could end up gapping down. But still, this looks more bullish than that. It's just formed a little bit of higher high compared to over here. Whereas Bitcoin has yet to really do that, right? So if the underlying more leverage play is a little bit outperforming Bitcoin, I just have a hard time seeing Bitcoin, really just kind of plummeting down all the way down to like 48K or something like that. I just have a hard time seeing that. If you're asking me about Coinbase, just real quick, had earnings. Earnings was kind of muted. It didn't really do a whole lot. Initially, I think it went up like 5%. It just kind of came back down, kind of close after hours, around like 8 p.m. Eastern, probably around the same price it was going to be. I really thought that the 200 level was a pretty strong level for price to potentially gravitate towards, because it's the lower part of the Bollinger Band. It's also at the kitchen of the red line here on the weekly Ichimoku cloud. And I think 200 is also a good psychological level. So to me, it would not be surprised to me at all if it ends up gravitating down towards 200 tomorrow. If there's something that's like bearish about it, I don't know. But if it doesn't hit that, that's fine. But I just see the 200 being a potentially pretty strong level for price to gravitate towards, and it's going to be a pretty good support level. So price probably bouncing from that. very, very strong Bollinger Band squeeze. Like all these Bitcoin related stocks, including Bitcoin itself, has a very strong squeeze here, on the Bollinger Band here on the weekly. So I think a bigger move is coming. The MSTR chart is so nice and so bullish that like it's above a lot of these different support zone. It's even clearly about the current support band, whereas Bitcoin is kind of still inside of it. So I just have a hard time getting too bearish on the Bitcoin and the crypto market overall. Now, again, Coinbase, we'll see how it goes tomorrow. I do think that it would make sense for the gravitate towards 200. But if it doesn't, if it just bounces from here, that'll be welcome too. We'll see what Bitcoin does tomorrow, right? I'm not going to talk about Robinhood. I just want to talk about CleanSpark here real quick. The monthly chart actually looked really bullish. And I know that it's like silly for me to say that because if this sideways price action here, downward trend, everybody gets scared like it's the same thing going to happen here like it did over here, right? The answer is I don't think so, because over here you have price action that have created a bullish Tenkan Christian cross. Over here you have a bullish Tenkan Christian cross, but price never really crossed above that area, and you're not having a bearish cross, right? Over here you have bullish cross, and price just clearly got above it and just basically been back testing the Tenkan here for a while. Now, this is a very important month because we've gone through an additional month where one of these candles over here are not counted anymore. So the Tenkan is going to be pushing up. Right now, the Tenkan is actually pushed up to around 15.23. And price, it was just one day. One day does not make a trend, right? This is a whole monthly candle. But so far is a little bit underneath of that. But I do think because this is up pushing like that, I do think that most likely it's going to serve a pretty decent support. And because it's up pushing like that, I think it's going to allow price to probably end up being pushed inside the cloud as a result, right? I don't really know what else to say about like the weekly chart. Like it just keeps on breaking down underneath over here. But again, it's only Thursday, tomorrow's Friday. If it ends up closing down underneath like that, I would at least like to see it the monthly close above 15.23. I would say I would at least like to see that, and because of this upward push kind of move look to it, I'm actually leaning more bullish on CleanSpark now. Like it would have been a different story if it just kind of broke underneath all of this, and then that would have been a little bit sad, if you will. But I think CleanSpark is actually looking pretty good. Mara, on the other hand, on the monthly, which is one day, it broke down underneath the kitchen over here, and I do think that most likely is going to end up holding. One reason why I say that, well, I mean, look at it too. You also had a bullish cross. You also had a bullish cross here. You also have Tenkan pointing up, but unfortunately, price was stuck in range for a very long time, and it's probably still stuck in range. It's probably just basically getting down here a little bit underneath the Tenkan there. But if you look at the Subichi cloud, it's still stuck in range. Like there's nothing significantly happened with Mara. You can go all the way down to like $16 and still be stuck in range, and it would still be relatively not concerning. The current level over here is still this 3-4 year long level of support and resistance, and we've basically been just doing a little bit of a back test over here still, right? Even after about 8 or 9 months of back testing, this is still a relatively bullish structure, although I think time is running out a little bit. Like it needs to do something because a big move is coming. And in terms of what the big move is, to me, if I think that it finds support over here at this trend line, then the big move should be up, right? We'll see whether or not this trend line holds. After hours, I think it went all the way down to like 16, 17 with earnings. But then I think price actually ended up bouncing after hours and back to around the current level where it closed at. And yeah, I mean, I think right now it's still at support. It did break down underneath the bull market support band, which is not favorable, but it's just been oscillating around the band for so long. Like I don't even know what it means, right? Another thing, I also think that in addition to this into this diagonal line support here, it also did something that is pretty significant. It did end up getting a little bit underneath the weekly Ichimoku cloud, but it looks like maybe Friday we might end up closing back inside of the bottom of the Ichimoku cloud. Bottom of the Ichimoku cloud is going to be around around 18.22. So I would like to see if ideally if the week closes inside the Ichimoku cloud around 18.22, I can still see this as a potentially as a bullish chart. And, you know, sometimes you're just going to have a day like this where they're going to flush everything down. And for a Bitcoin miner, if it goes up and down like 10%, it's really just normal volatility. And there's really nothing else to really say about it. It did get rejected up here from the ARC, so I guess it's trying to find some support underneath. And I guess the support that it's trying to find is maybe the Ichimoku cloud. Topped up with Ichimoku cloud, wasn't able to hold. The Fibonacci level over here around 22.07 wasn't able to hold. So we'll see if the cloud holds. You know, I tend to lean a little bit more bullish as support because it's a confluence of this, you know, diagonal line here, as well as confluence at the bottom of the Ichimoku cloud. So I tend to be a little bit more leaning towards bullishness here for Mara. Bitfarms look a little bit better. Actually, it looks like it's just basically breaking above the arc and just backtesting the arc. It looks like it's still potentially going to end up closing a week above the 0.236 Fibonacci level at around 2.49. So this is still a relatively bullish look for Bitfarms. You look at the monthly, and if I turn off all the scan and Fibonacci, we just put up the Ichimoku, it's still stuck in range. I mean, it looks more bullish than Mara because Mara currently is underneath the kitchen, but Bitfarm is still stuck in range. It's underneath this rising Tenkan over here, but it's still a little bit way above the kitchen down here. So it's got a little bit more of a bullish look to it compared to Mara. And I do think Mara's probably end up catching up to Bitfarms because they're basically the same chart, essentially. But, you know, Bitfarm looks a little bit ahead compared to Mara. And if you just look at the weekly, it also looks like it's gravitating towards the Ichimoku cloud, but so far it might be more touching at the top of the cloud rather than the bottom of the cloud, you know. So I think Bitfarm so far looks a little bit better, but who knows, things might change in a hurry. So I tend to look at more like a higher time frame. I think it's still stuck in a range here at Bitfarms, but it looks like it wants to break out more than Mara. Mara is still stuck in range on the Supaichi cloud over here, but it's, you know, losing a little bit of steam over here. It's running a little bit out of time. It is at some pretty strong support, so let's see whether or not the strong support holds, and we bounce from here. We will see. CIFR, unfortunately, it ended up closing the month underneath 5.5. So that means that the strong resistance zone over here still applies, and that was just a wick. And as you got rejected from resistance, you end up trying to find support underneath. And in terms of what support underneath, well, you're going to have to pull out different indicators and try to find support underneath. You know, you have some of the Supaichi cloud support underneath here. You have the Bora support band is actually getting very contracted. It's like the 20 week SMA and 21 week EMA is like very basically just superimposed on one another. So anyway, you have plenty of support underneath. If it has to come down, I think it's going to find some very strong support around 4.4. But anything under 5, I still consider to be a pretty decent buy. If you look at the weekly, if anything, it does look a little bit more like a breakout in a back test. Then the breakout happened on relatively high volume. On the monthly, it doesn't look like that. Monthly just looks like a little bit of a wick here. But on the weekly, it really does look like a breakout about this 5.5 zone. And you closed the week over here around like 6.2. And it's just simply back testing it on declining volume. So this is a pretty bullish look to it. We'll see whether or not this really truly plays out. But this does look like a breakout of this ascending triangle with a back test. Can back test go a little bit further down to around 4.4? Sure it can. These are miners. They can do whatever they want. These are stocks. You know, they can do whatever they want, right? But it just seems that this is more of a bullish formation, just looking at the weekly chart over here. Now, a couple more and I'll let you go. IREN, I thought that, you know, price kind of end up gravitating towards back over here to support zone. The lowest probably going to go is probably around $8. But you can also potentially find support around here, around the zone, because there's a pretty important horizontal zone that dates all the way back to January 2022. If you're pulling up some of the support zone over here, I think we did end up losing the kitchen over here for the weekly. If you look at the Supaichi, you know, it's a little bit underneath all these resistance now, but if you look at the 2 week or if you look at higher time frame, it still looks great. If you look at higher time frame for the monthly here, if you don't look at the Supaichi, you just look at the Ichimoku cloud, it also still looks very great. Bullish cross price, you know, only this is like the first day of August. Most likely price going to end up getting back above of the Tenkan here because it's possibly sloping. So we'll see, but IREN's actually looking pretty decent here on the higher time frame. But the lower time frame is still trying to find, you know, various support levels and see whether or not you can find support. Now, one support that is also very, very nice in addition to the horizontal zone, back in January 2022 and December 2023, and you can also argue this wick over here in February 2024, is that you finally had the boomerang support band really catching up to it. So this might be more of just, a little bit overextended. If you look at the Bollinger Band, you know that it was way overextended over here. And price is just simply correcting through both time and price. And it's gravitating back towards down of some of these very important levels down here. In the case of IREN, it's going to be at the Bollinger support band. And that's where it's finding support. So if I was going to buy more, I think this would be a good, risk reward ratio here to consider buying. But I'm not. I'm happy what I have. WULF is a little bit too far overextended here on the weekly away from the Bollinger support band. If you look at the other indicators, it looks like it got pretty close to the Ceviche cloud. It looks like it got pretty close to the kitchen over here. So you are finally at some support here, although I can totally see price potentially gravitate down to the Bollinger support band, maybe another like 50 cents or something like that going down over the next couple of weeks, depending on what Bitcoin does. If Bitcoin found its bottom today, which again, I think it's a strong possibility because of a confluence of support there for Bitcoin, then WULF may not have to go down that far. It could very well be finding support over here, which is going to be confluent with a horizontal zone over here, and back in July 2023, as well as the support level over here around March 2022. If it ends up finding support here, great. It could go up higher. Do I think it has to go down? No. But that's your risk level. I'll say maybe like another 60 cents or so coming down. And this downtrend over here is also in declining volume, and you can keep going down on declining volume. If you can keep going down to like $2, $2.50 on declining volume, if it does that, that's a huge buy right there, in my opinion. Although I'm not sure if the market's going to give you that. Anywhere up here would probably be where I see TerraWolf bouncing. I could keep talking about like BTBT, which basically looks pretty bullish. I think it's finding support here in Tengen. I can talk about HUD. HUD basically is breaking down underneath into the Ishimoku cloud, and it's finding support here in the kitchen, but can it break down a little bit further to like the $12 zone? Sure, it can. Plenty of support underneath, right? Riot is a little bit sad. Riot couldn't hold the Bollinger support band, and today it's just ended up breaking down like crazy. And if you are looking at some of the other supports on the weekly here, on the Ichimoku cloud, on the Ceviche cloud, on the Bollinger support band, it's basically broken down underneath everything. So how would you see this? Like, is there something bullish about this that I'm not catching? On the weekly, I still think it might be at risk to go down a little bit further to like the $8, 8.3, 8.4 zone. Do I think it has to? No. I do think that there is something that looks okay when it comes to Riot, is because it is relatively at a diagonal support level over here, which makes me think that this might just be a wick, especially if we see IWM and Bitcoin potentially bouncing back tomorrow. We will see, right? But we are at relative support here, so I don't know what to make of Riot. This is also part of the reason why I haven't entered Riot, because even though it looks like the chart's trying to repair, it just didn't really, like the Bollinger support band just wasn't really like positive sloping. Granted, price can just keep going sideways here for a little bit before going up, and I can still see the argument that this is still, a potentially like a building up like an ascending triangle, but it just probably take longer for Riot to do it. There's still plenty of resistance underneath. Sorry, there's still plenty of resistance above, right? So I won't enter Riot at this point because you have other charts that look better. That's all. Anyway, I just wanted to spend 25 minutes just talking about these charts, because today is an absolutely vicious day. Do I feel it? Yeah, absolutely, I do feel it. Did I expect today to just flush down like that? I would say no, that's not my expectation. But am I surprised by that after FOMC, after a big giant bullish day, after they're trying to kill all the puts? Do you think that they're not going to kill all the calls? I mean, I guess I'm not that surprised by it, but yeah, it wasn't a good day. I think it's a terrible day. It's been a terrible few weeks actually, to be holding a lot of these large cap stocks, and even for IWM, it was a very bullish formation, but it's been giving away a lot of it today. Yeah, but sometimes it's the market is what it is. It gives and ticks, and overall you have to look at the trend. And I'm a trend cat, so in terms of trend, I do see that in Bitcoin. I think this fractal seemed to be playing out. And I still think MSTR is more bullish than Bitcoin, so that tells me something about how the crypto market is going to go. And miners overall on the higher time frame here on the weekly still look, like a lot of these, big six miners that I follow, they still look okay. So I am just gonna keep, watching them. I don't really care to add because I feel like my position is already big enough. But if the market basically just keeps saying, like, basically somebody's coming to your house and saying, "Oh, your car is worth like $10,000 now." You know that it's supposed to be worth more, but somebody's coming up to you and say, "Oh, the car is like worth $10,000." If you don't sell, I don't know if anybody's going to buy it. I mean, I like it's a piece of crap car. Like if you don't sell it right now, you may never have a chance to. And the price, I might come back tomorrow and ask for like 6,000. Well, why are you coming back to me tomorrow? Why do you want my car? Just like whatever, just leave me alone. Like I think overall like the car was what, like $600, a couple of years ago, and it's just been going up and it's been correcting sideways. Like just leave me alone. It like somebody comes, basically you go in the supermarket and somebody's screaming at you like eggs are 20 cents a carton. Like, okay, do I want to buy it? Sure. Am I going to worry about the carton being like 18 cents tomorrow? No, I don't care. It's 20 cents. Anyway, that's my way to view it, but maybe it's the wrong way. I don't know. But anyway, thank you so much for listening. Have a good night, guys.